Everyone knows about great white sharks. Everyone knows about box jellyfish. At this point, even the blue-ringed octopus has its own fan base. But the ocean has killers that most people have never even heard of, and some of them are way more terrifying than anything that has ever made it onto a nature documentary. These are animals that dissolve prey from the inside, hijack other creatures' nervous systems, or carry enough venom to drop a human in minutes, and yet somehow they have stayed completely under the radar. The reason most people do not know about them is not because they are rare. It is because they live in places we do not go, look like things we would never suspect, or kill in ways so bizarre that scientists are still trying to figure out how they even work. So let's fix that. Here are the deadliest underwater killers you have probably never heard of. Let's start with something that looks completely harmless. The textile cone snail is thumb-sized, and it has a beautiful patterned shell that honestly looks like it belongs in a gift shop. Tourists pick these things up all the time. That's a terrible idea. This snail carries a venom cocktail of over 100 different toxins, and it delivers them through a hollow, harpoon-like tooth that it can fire in any direction, even behind itself. The harpoon strikes so fast that scientists had to use high-speed cameras just to see it happen. 1 second, the snail is sitting there looking like a decorative paperweight. The next second, a microscopic dart has punched through your skin and injected a chemical mixture that shuts down your nervous system. Here's the really messed up part. Cone snail venom includes a compound that blocks pain signals. You don't even feel the sting at first. By the time you realize something is wrong, the venom is already paralyzing your muscles. Your diaphragm stops working and you can't breathe. There is no anti-venom. Treatment is basically just keeping the person alive on life support and hoping their body can outlast the toxin. Around 30 human deaths have been attributed to cone snails, which might not sound like a lot until you realize that most people who get stung were just picking up a pretty shell on the beach. The snail didn't chase them down. It didn't even move. It just sat there and let curiosity do the rest. But at least the cone snail has to touch you. The bobbit worm does not even give you that courtesy. This creature buries itself in the ocean floor with just a few inches of its body sticking out, and then it waits. It can wait for hours, days, whatever it takes. When a fish swims overhead, the bobbit worm strikes so fast that it can snap its prey clean in half. Scientists have recorded strike speeds under 20 milliseconds. That is faster than a human blink. And these worms are not small. They can grow up to 10 feet long, with most of that body hidden underground, like the world's worst landmine. The jaws on this animal are like spring-loaded scissors made of chitin, and they can slice through flesh and even thin shells. There are documented cases of bobbit worms getting accidentally introduced into aquariums and slowly eating every fish in the tank, one by one. Owners would come in each morning to find another fish missing. No evidence, no trace, just fewer fish. It took weeks before anyone figured out what was happening, because the worm was hidden in the substrate, only emerging at night to pull fish underground, like some kind of aquatic horror villain. And they do not just eat fish. Bobbit worms inject a narcotizing toxin into their prey before swallowing it, which means the fish is paralyzed and being digested while still technically alive. Some specimens have been found with multiple prey items in various stages of digestion inside their burrows. They just stockpile food underground like a serial killer with a pantry. And because they can regenerate body parts, even cutting one in half does not necessarily kill it. You might end up with 2 bobbit worms, which is arguably worse than having one. If that does not qualify as one of the ocean's most brutal killers, I do not know what does. And somehow, almost nobody talks about them. Now, let's go deeper. Off the coast of Australia, in waters around 300 to 600 feet deep, lives a creature called the blue-lined octopus. Not the blue-ringed octopus, which everybody knows about. The blue-lined octopus is a close relative, just as venomous and far less studied. Like its more famous cousin, it carries tetrodotoxin, the same compound found in pufferfish, and it can deliver a fatal dose through a bite you might not even notice until your muscles start failing. The difference is that the blue-lined octopus is more aggressive. While the blue-ringed octopus is famously shy and only bites when handled, the blue-lined variety has been observed actively defending territory and biting other animals that come too close. We do not have a reliable death count for this species because for decades, every fatality was just attributed to its more famous relative. It was not until recently that researchers started separating the two species in their records, and what they found was that some of those so-called blue-ringed octopus deaths might have actually been caused by an animal most people did not even know existed. But venom is not the only way to be deadly. The giant moray eel has a second set of jaws. Literally. Inside its throat sits a smaller pair of pharyngeal jaws that shoot forward to grab prey and drag it down into the eel's body. It is basically the same mechanism as the creature from Alien, and it is just as horrifying. These eels can grow over 10 feet long and weigh close to 70 pounds. Their bite force is strong enough to crush crustacean shells, and those inner jaws make escape essentially impossible once you are caught. Most people think morays are docile because they see them sitting in reef crevices with their mouths open. That mouth-open posture is not aggression. It is just how they breathe. But make no mistake, morays are apex predators that hunt at night with a sense of smell so sharp they can detect a single drop of blood from 80 feet away. Divers who have been bitten describe the injury as being worse than a shark bite because the moray does not let go. It clamps down and uses those pharyngeal jaws to pull you in deeper. There are cases of moray bites taking off fingers entirely. One diver in Hawaii lost the tip of his thumb when a moray mistook his hand for an octopus. The eel struck, clamped, and started ratcheting those inner jaws before the diver even processed what was happening. Moving away from reefs and into open water, there is a predator that sounds like it should not be dangerous at all, but it is absolutely dangerous. The mantis shrimp is not really a shrimp at all, and what it does with its claws is legitimately insane. There are two types, smashers and spearers. The smashers punch. That is their whole strategy. They ball up their front appendages and throw them forward with the force of a .22 caliber bullet. This is an animal the size of your hand, and it generates the same acceleration as a gunshot. The strike is so fast that it actually boils the water around the impact point, creating cavitation bubbles that deal a second shockwave of damage, even if the initial punch misses. Aquariums have reported mantis shrimp cracking through the glass of their tanks. Fishermen who handle them incorrectly have had fingers broken clean through. One punch from a mantis shrimp can shatter crab shells, split open clam armor, and even crack the skull of a small fish. They are aggressive, and they will absolutely pick fights with things much larger than themselves. They are highly territorial, incredibly fast, and equipped with the most complex eyes in the entire animal kingdom, capable of seeing ultraviolet, infrared, and polarized light simultaneously. So not only can they punch harder than anything their size has any right to, they can also see you coming from angles you did not even know existed. Scientists have been studying mantis shrimp strikes for decades, and they still do not fully understand how an animal this small generates that much force without destroying its own body in the process. But moving into deeper, darker water, there is a creature that is even more underrated as a killer. The Humboldt squid, also called the red devil, hunts in packs of up to 1,200 individuals. Each one is 6 feet long, weighs up to 100 pounds, and has tentacles lined with toothed suckers that can rip flesh off bone. They have been known to attack divers, and fishermen in the Sea of Cortez have feared them for generations. Humboldt squid are cannibalistic. If one member of the group gets injured, the others will turn on it and eat it alive. They flash red and white patterns across their skin during hunts, which scientists believe is a form of communication, although nobody has fully decoded what they are saying. What we do know is that when those patterns start flashing, something is about to die. Fishermen who have fallen overboard in Humboldt territory have reported being grabbed by multiple squid simultaneously, pulled underwater, and bitten through wetsuits. The squid do not have venom, but they do not need it. Their beaks can slice through rubber and neoprene like scissors through paper. Because they hunt at night in deep water, you usually do not see them coming. One moment you are floating in dark water. The next moment, something is grabbing your legs from 15 different directions. But perhaps the most underrated killer in the ocean isn't a predator at all, at least not in the traditional sense. The flower urchin holds the Guinness World Record for most venomous sea urchin, and it looks exactly like something you'd want to touch. It has small, flower-shaped pedicularia covering its body, and they look soft and delicate. They are not. Each one is a tiny claw loaded with venom that causes muscle paralysis, respiratory failure, and in severe cases, death. A single sting produces pain so intense that victims have described it as worse than childbirth, and the pain can last for hours. The flower urchin is found throughout the Indo-Pacific, usually sitting on coral rubble where it blends in perfectly with its surroundings. There is no warning coloration, no obvious spines, nothing to suggest danger. It just looks like a particularly colorful rock covered in tiny flowers. And because it is not aggressive and literally cannot move toward you, every envenomation is a case of someone touching something they should not have. Much like the cone snail, the flower urchin has weaponized human curiosity. It does not hunt, it does not chase. It just exists, looking pretty, and waits for something dumb enough to make contact. And that's the recurring theme with most of these killers. They don't chase you down. They don't announce themselves. They sit, they wait, and they let the ocean do the rest. The cone snail hides in plain sight. The bobbit worm hides underground. The flower urchin disguises itself as something beautiful. The blue-lined octopus fits in the palm of your hand. Even the giant moray just sits in a hole, breathing, until something gets close enough to trigger those nightmare jaws. The ocean's deadliest animals aren't always the biggest or the most aggressive. A lot of the time, they're the ones you'd walk right past, or worse, the ones you'd reach down and pick up because they looked interesting. That's what makes them so effective. Millions of years of evolution didn't make them faster or stronger. It made them invisible. It made them patient. It made them into something that you wouldn't recognize as dangerous until it was already too late. And the worst part? These are just the ones we know about. Scientists estimate there are over 2 million marine species we haven't even cataloged yet. Every year, deep-sea expeditions pull up creatures that don't match anything in the existing records. New species of venomous snails. New species of ambush predators. New species of things we can't even classify yet because they're so different from everything else. If evolution managed to build a worm that snaps fish in half underground, a snail that shoots venomous harpoons, a shrimp that punches with the force of a bullet, and an urchin that weaponized looking pretty, what else is sitting out there on the ocean floor, waiting for someone to come along and find out the hard way? The ocean doesn't care about reputation. The most famous predators get the documentaries and the movie deals. But the ones that should actually keep you up at night are the ones nobody bothered to make famous. The small ones, the quiet ones, the ones that look like rocks or flowers or something you'd put on a shelf. Those are the real killers, and they've been perfecting their craft for millions of years, longer than anything with a dorsal fin. If you'd like to watch my video on the creepiest deep-sea squids, check it out here. Thanks for watching.